that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
We can make our beloved country the source of all the dreams and the opportunities that she was missing.
Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the most divisive headlines and put them to the debate with our diverse group of hosts. Join us as we leave no story uncovered and spare no politician. Everybody, and apparently I'm out of focus. Daggum, my camera was on focus when that intro started, I promise y'all. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome into the American Idiots Podcast. I am Money Mike, of course, going to be joined pretty quickly by one of the co-hosts, Mr. Bad Brad. Manny Hispani is off on vacation this week, but of course, before we get started, we want to talk to you. If you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and give us a like, share the page, all that good stuff. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified anytime we upload, which is Mondays at 7:30. And of course, hit the subscribe button. And finally, if you're listening to us on our audio-only platforms, go ahead and drop us a like and leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, if you would, please. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my guest for this evening. We're going to talk a little bit of a short show tonight. We only have about 4 topics that have been dominating headlines over the past couple weeks since we last talked. Mr. Brad, how are you doing tonight, Brad?
I'm doing good. And for all those, I know you got Facebook, YouTube, and all that. If you happen to be watching the show through some form of adult entertainment website, please finish your festivities and click the like button later, or it's just going to stick. I don't know what that's about, but anyway.
Hey, something about sticky keyboards. I don't know about all that.
Paper towels, bro. Paper towels.
Paper towels. Paper towels. Clean yourself up first.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Well, Brad, we got a lot we don't have a lot to get to, but we definitely have a pretty good show tonight. I think we're going to get a little bit of good back and forth going on this, and especially about our first case, because I know you're an anti-death penalty guy. I'm definitely a death penalty guy, and even though the guy offed himself, I think this is the perfect reason why we need a death penalty, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But we have a story from ABC News on the mass shooting at the elementary school in Texas.
These cops are right here. Bro, there's a shooting at the school, and these cops are telling everybody to leave, dude. While everybody's here trying to pick up their kids.
New details continue to emerge about the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The incident on May 24th left 21 dead and 17 wounded. In the days following, authorities gave differing accounts of what happened, raising questions about how law enforcement responded. The rampage continued for 77 minutes before officers killed the shooter. Using a timeline from Texas Department of Public Safety Director Stephen McCraw, mapping, and additional footage from the scene, here's what we know so far. In some cases, timing is approximate. Shortly after 11 a.m. on May 24th, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos allegedly shot his 66-year-old grandmother in the face at their home. At 11:28, the gunman crashed into a ravine near Robb Elementary. A teacher outside witnessed the crash and went inside to get her phone. Ramos then allegedly exited the car and opened fire on 2 people outside the funeral home across the street. Neither was injured, according to McCraw. At 11:30, the teacher went back outside to call 911 and report the crash. But while speaking to the dispatcher, she saw a man approaching the school with a gun. She ran inside and closed the door behind her. thinking it would lock automatically, the teacher's lawyer told ABC News.
That door is supposed to always be locked. She runs into a classroom right to her right, and that's when she starts to hear pop, 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 just really fast.
A minute later, Ramos allegedly jumped over a fence and moved towards the school while firing at the building. Meanwhile, a Uvalde school district officer who heard the call arrived at the school.
That officer drove immediately to the area, sped to what he thought was the man with a gun, to the back of the school, which turned out to be a teacher, and not the suspect. In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle, where he began shooting at the school.
Soon after, Ramos entered the school through the same door on the building's northwest side, which was closed but unlocked, according to Texas DPS, who confirmed the account from the teacher's attorney. From there, he walked 20 to 30 feet through the school, turned right down a hallway, and entered either classroom 111 or 112, which are connected. About a minute before the gunman entered the building, an employee triggered an internal alert system. A spokesperson for Raptor Technologies, the company that makes the app, told ABC News.
At 11:33, the suspect begins shooting into room 111 or 112. It's not possible to determine from the video angle that we have at this point in time that he shot more than 100 rounds based on the audio evidence at that time.
2 minutes later, 3 Uvalde officers entered the school, soon followed by 3 more and a deputy county sheriff, while other officers surrounded the building, according to McCraw.
The 3 initial police officers that arrived went directly to the door, and 2 received grazing wounds at that time from the suspect.
And people began to gather outside the school. At 11:58, some students were seen exiting through the windows.
Somebody jump out of the window.
Oh, the kids. They're getting the kids out.
I'm ready. I have to.
At 12:03, more officers entered the school and met in the hallway, bringing the total number of law enforcement in the building up to 19. While this happened, someone made an 83-second 911 call from inside room 112. The same person called back less than 10 minutes later, reporting that multiple people were dead. McCraw said.
We do have a child online. Room 12. Are we able to... Is there anybody inside of the building at this? Sure. Child is advising he is in the room full of victims at this moment.
At 12:16, the same caller in room 112 called back again to report that some students were still alive, according to McCraw.
8 to 9 children.
At that time, U.S. Border Patrol Tactical Unit was on the scene with shields and other equipment.
At 12:21, the suspect fired again, was believed to be at the door. Law enforcement moved down the hallway.
The 911 caller in room 112 asked for police to be sent in, making the same request a few minutes later, according to McCraw. At 12:50 p.m., 80 minutes after the teacher's first 911 call, tactical officers entered the room using keys from a janitor. They shot and killed the gunman in room 111, sources told ABC News. The incident was the worst mass shooting at an American public school in nearly a decade, and has left many wondering whether officers acted appropriately. In March of this year, local law enforcement in Uvalde received training in ways to respond to a situation like this. Local law enforcement has changed its account of the events multiple times since the incident.
There was a brave Consolidated Independent School District resource officer that approached him, engaged him.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unobstructed initially.
3 days after the shooting, McCraw said that officers waited to enter the room because they believed that the active shooter situation had ended.
Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation. And for the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
Law enforcement is investigating why the school door didn't lock. The Justice Department is currently reviewing law enforcement's response.
Okay, so Brad, there's a couple things to start out with. I'm going to start out with obviously the big one that everybody wants to talk about right now, and that is this the time for gun reform? I'm going to start out and say absolutely not. This isn't the time for gun reform. This is the time that we're looking at to actually implement the legislation we have in place. Obviously, we hear about these people that are, that are mentally deranged, mentally unstable, that are getting these weapons, and obviously there's a disconnect between the law, which clearly states that you cannot own a weapon if you're mentally unstable, and the actual execution of the law. There's some type of disconnect there. That's where we need to find it. There's no need for more stringent gun laws in this country just based upon this one incident, in my opinion. I think just enforcing the ones we have are going to be a perfect solution for this, Brad.
Well, I agree and I disagree to a degree. As far as gun reform goes, I do believe that it needs to be some reform involved in gun reform. But the reason I say that is even going from Uvalde shooting to today's present date, 33 mass shootings have occurred since then.
Mm-hmm.
And a mass shooting is defined as a shooting that injures and or kills 4 or more people in the same event, I guess, incident. Now, with that being said, I did some research earlier, and 3% is the number. 3% of shootings have involved the AR-15. Now, the AR-15 is owned by between 5 million and 10 million people within the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about 3%. Now, to someone who's lost their kid, that I can understand. Okay, I'm not trying to desecrate their memory or their existence or their being slain at the hands of a gun to a simple number like 3%. But what I'm saying is there's a lot being made about the gun. There's a lot being made about the ammunition. And obviously the AR-15 was designed for military use back in I think it was the late 50s. I think Colt bought them out in the mid 60s and then civilianized the weapon. And yes, you can fire high capacity round or magazines, and you can shoot 10 times more than you can with any other weapon. And so I get that. But I think we're losing focus on the real issue at hand, and that is this mental health crisis that we're going through right now.
Absolutely.
We've had a mental health crisis for a long time, but now you couple that with the pandemic of where everybody was pretty much forced to stay secluded from each other and isolated from each other. And then you mix in social media.
Mm-hmm.
It just, do they need to? I mean, I'm not saying, that's the thing. I thought about this today. If you think about it, you have this one group, and I won't identify left or right. I'll let people make their own decisions on that. But
right.
you have a certain group of people that instantly trigger the whole, well, they're coming to get my guns movement. And
right.
I don't think that's the case. But then you have the other ones that are saying, well, we need to ban guns. We need to take guns out of the hands of private citizens. Okay. That's not going to solve the problem. That's not going to fix anything. Right. It's just going to create one less avenue for someone to carry out such a diabolical act. I mean, this kid that committed these crimes, that killed these 21 people, including children, he's on social media months before holding a bag of dead cats, a see-through bag of dead cats.
Yeah.
And he's like bragging about it. They've known about this for months.
Mm-hmm.
He posts a day or two before that he's going to, go shoot up a school. Nobody did anything. If you're going to do gun reform, then we've got to tackle the other issues. The pandemic social media has been a huge problem in this country since its inception. Mm-hmm. It is the disconnect that we have as an American people is insane. I mean, as a country, as a world, basically. I shouldn't say American. I mean, I'm American, so I just use American, but the disconnect is insanity. I mean, and you make the argument, well, Chicago Chicago has the, more outlawed guns and gun laws than anywhere that I've ever imagined. And they have shootings every day.
Absolutely.
And people will tell you, well, they go to Illinois to get them, or they go across the border. I mean, 'cause Chicago is in Illinois, but they go across the border or the state border to get a gun. They bring it back.
What do you think they're going to do if we ban guns? Honestly, what do you think they're going to do? You think guns are magically going to disappear? Are you really making it tougher for these individuals to get their hands on weapons? Not really.
No, what you're doing is you're taking guns out of legal citizens' hands. I mean, I carry a gun. I don't carry it all the time. I carry it in just a few times a year, just if I know I'm going to be in a situation where it's not, I guess, neighborhood or different city I may be in, I carry it there for protection, just in case. But I don't live in fear. Our old co-host that helped start this show, Sean Castleberry, used to argue all the time about, well, if you carry a gun, that means you're a pussy and you're scared of something. And I'm not scared of anything as far as that goes. I just want to have the resource handily available to me if something does happen, because we're living in a time where we're fostering this idea that, you don't have to do anything for your money, that will give you money. You don't have to earn it, work for it anymore. And then when you don't have it, or especially now that the pandemic's lifted away and the reality of the economy is now starting to skyrocket because of all the free money that we pushed away, people's lifestyles for a long time, for a year and a half, changed. Especially if you were drawing that unemployment. You were making $900 to $1,000 a week when you were used to $200, $300, $400, $500 a week. So now that it's not there anymore, it's starting to set in, and it's just creating chaos.
People are getting.
But I do think we got to figure something out. We got to figure something.
One thing, Brad, that is another controversial topic. But again, I look at it this way. And before I get started in my explanation, I'll tell you what it is. Teachers allowing either certain teachers to be certified, or again, these student resource officers, to allow them more student resource officers in the school. Because here's the thing. I don't care that this person, and I'm sorry, I don't care that this person is no longer with us. Here's the thing. If we had somebody in that school with a weapon, the number wouldn't have been, 19, I believe, altogether? The number
was 21. You had 19 kids and two adults, I believe. Or maybe him included. I don't know.
Maybe one or two, but I guarantee you somebody would have popped the kid.
Go back. Just go back and look at all of them. Adam Lanza. I forgot which one he was. This guy. Dylan Claybold and those guys over in Columbine or Colorado, wherever they were, I can't remember. It's just go back and look. The warning signs were there, and you tell me that there's so much social media accessibility when a police officer commits a crime or posts something derogatory or when somebody does something ridiculous. And I do have to apologize if I have to throw it to you sooner. I do have to go get a few things here in a second. But just saying, the signs are there. They're out there, and we're not doing anything about it. All we're focused on is time is gun control. And I just think that there's a lot more that can be done if we're not so single-mindedly focused on something that's not going to solve the problem anyway.
You're absolutely right, and I completely agree with you. Like I said, though, we currently have laws. It's crazy how hyper-focused America is on these social media posts and talking about, making sure that these people with mental health needs are addressed. But how many of these same people are the ones ignoring these calls for help on social media, these issues that people are having, and they're bringing them to social media? You mentioned that this gentleman in Uvalde, Texas, the bag of dead cats, mentioning on Facebook that he was going to go shoot up a school. Those aren't things to joke about. Those are things that if you see something, you say something about it. You have a talk at the very least and shoot him a message and be like, hey, you good? Like, I'm here if you need to talk. Are you going through some shit? Like, these are things where, yes, you take that step. Guess what? It's not on the police to see these stories and go ahead and reach out. It's on you at this point to reach out. If they're not doing their job, you do their job for them so you can save 19 innocent children and 2 adults. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I do something, but no, I mean, and also too, where are the cries and the calls out for? Because I thought about this. Where are the calls for, more censorship and more restrictions on? I mean, I know it's freedom of speech, but you listen to the music these days. You listen to what's played out there. You have in the urban cities, you have a lot of gang violence, you have a lot of shootings and killings, and then you have a lot of the other, if you listen to rap music, it's glorifying a lifestyle that's not obtainable, but by a select few.
I mean,
TikTok's the same way. But then you listen to some of this, there's what is that? That song about mass shootings. Pumped Up Kicks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're glorifying this. You're glorifying it in video games. You're glorifying it in. I mean, I'm on season 4, episode 2 of Ozark. So if you've seen it, the whole thing, don't tell me or I'll kick your ass. But it's a great show. But everything glorifies death and drugs and violence and this lifestyle of having money. I mean, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, one of my favorite television shows, glorifies that lifestyle, and that's unobtainable for a large population of the world, especially here in the United States. Not everybody's going to be successful.
Well,
so
go ahead.
I was saying we're just all this, the games and the music and the narrative that is being passed around is an illusion, and it's causing a problem. And we think that solving it is just, well, let's take the guns away. That's not going to solve anything. Over in China, they had a guy that used a stiletto knife, killed 7 people, injured 7. Timothy McVeigh, did he use a single gun to carry out his mission of destruction back in the 90s? No.
Absolutely not.
He may have used one to shoot somebody at the rental yard or whatever, or a cop, I can't remember, but he used fertilizer and a bomb. He made a bomb. 9/11, they used box cutters.
Yeah.
In airplanes. I mean, so if you're sadistic enough and you're screwed up in the head enough that you want to kill people, then you're going to find a way, and I'll be right back.
Absolutely, you're going to find a way. I mean, you look at it, even in the city in which you're employed, Brad, and right up the road here, Little Rock, Arkansas, over the weekend, 2 weekends ago, now, a 7-year-old child was killed by gunfire. I mean, there's absolutely something that needs to be done, but it needs to be done that you can't take away anything. You have to solve the issue before anything would actually work. If we're going to take away guns, that's fine. But guess what? We still have the mental health issues we have in this country. There are so many issues that need to be addressed before weapons or anything like that. We talk about glorifying, this person has mental health issues. They needed to be taken care of, so on and so forth. We talk about how the prison system doesn't reform anybody. And that's one of the big situations, one of the big arguments against the death penalty. If this dude would have survived, I would have been all for sticking the needle in this dude's arm. And the reason why, it's very simple. Number one, the evidence is cut and dry that this is the guy who did it. Number two, it's the fact that this guy has absolutely zero, and I do mean zero, chance of being rehabilitated. There's no reason to keep him around. There's no reason to sit here and try to reform a guy that there is no potential way to fix. And that's exactly why I would support, the guy in Buffalo. I think that 100% that guy needs a needle in his arm by the end of this. It's just the way that I look at it. These types of criminals cannot be reformed. Number one, it's got a lot to do with mental health. Guess what? Even if we address their mental health, they're still going to have an issue. They still committed these heinous crimes, and they still deserve to be put to death in this country for those heinous crimes. Again, if you can't rehabilitate somebody, it's crazy to me that we are willing to say that an animal, for example, is not able to be reformed. An animal who bites somebody, we can't teach it not to bite somebody. First thing we're going to do is put a bullet in its head. But we're going to be willing to give a person who, let's be honest, at our deepest core, we're just animals ourselves. We're going to give them that option to potentially continue to bite average everyday citizens over and over again. But that's neither here nor there with this talk. Let's go ahead and move on to our second topic while we're waiting for our co-host to get back. Elon Musk and Tesla. We have a story here from Yahoo Finance on Elon Musk and Tesla.
Oh, so many threads to pull from this jobs report, especially as we hear of layoffs or potential layoffs at some large tech companies. The latest being Tesla. Reuters reporting that Elon Musk is warning that the company will have to cut about 10%. That's about 100,000 or so employees at that company. The billionaire apparently has a, quote, super bad feeling about the economy. How is that going to impact overall hiring? Let's stay on that theme with Daniel Zhao, Glassdoor senior economist who joins us live. Daniel, great to speak with you again. You know, the tech space has been getting a lot of attention because even though the headline numbers tell us that in the aggregate, the U.S. economy is still adding jobs, you're hearing these anecdotes of these large tech companies doing these layoffs. Are you seeing that in the data so far, at least either from the Glassdoor perspective or from the BLS reports?
Not really. So that's the short answer. When we look at the jobs report, we see that tech sectors like information or professional and tech services have just seen steady jobs growth in May. So there isn't really any signs of hiring freezes or layoffs in that data. When we look at Glassdoor data, similarly, overall, the picture is pretty healthy. We do see that there is an increase in concerns from employees. So when we look at business outlook ratings from employees, those are actually at their highest levels since rather at their worst levels since the pandemic began. But at the same time, for tech workers, that's about 16% negative. So that's a pretty low number. So overall, I think that in the tech sector, we are seeing concerns. We are seeing employees report that they have these concerns about layoffs, but it's not yet showing up in the aggregate economic data.
So I asked this question to Allison just now, but is there anything in this May data that shows you if there's a changing dynamic in the power between workers and employers? Because it's been favoring the workers so far. They have options to choose from. Do you see that weakening as the Fed raises rates and perhaps takes some steam out of that?
Not yet in the May report, because we do see that the labor market is very healthy. We know that job openings, even though they did tick down in April, are near record highs. Layoffs are near record lows. We did see wage growth come down a little bit. And so if you're really searching in the report for evidence that maybe there is a shift in the balance of worker power and employer power, that might be something to point to. But at the same time, it's still pretty strong. And overall, I think the labor market holistically is very healthy and is still tilted towards workers.
So I don't want to get too deep into labor market economics, but what's really interesting about what we're seeing here is just the matching is a little bit different in 2022 than it was in 2019. I understand that you've been looking at just the amount of interviews and the way that they're being done in 2022. We saw a big uptick in the amount of people that were doing job interviews remote. That has kind of stayed the same through this pandemic recovery. Do you feel like there's any pandemic-led shift in the way that people are looking and getting recruited for jobs?
Absolutely. The in-person interview isn't dead, but the remote interview certainly is here to stay. That is something we expect to see continue even after the pandemic, and is something we have been seeing in Glassdoor data so far during the pandemic, just because remote interviews are much more convenient, they're much cheaper, and that's true for both the employer and the employee, because now you don't have to fly out a candidate to an on-site interview, but at the same time, that candidate doesn't have to take off time from work. They don't need to pretend to have a dentist appointment in order to take an interview. So to some extent, that might actually make the matching process a little bit faster, which would be a nice change to the labor market. But at the same time, that might also reduce retention because it makes it easier for employees to actually go look for another job while they're on the job.
The dentist office.
Okay, that stopped having anything to do with what I was talking about 2 minutes before that. So I ask you this: with 10% of, and let's look at who they're laying off. It's 10% of the salaried workers, not the average hourly workers or anything like that. 10% of the salaried workers, which tend to be the highest paid employees of any individual company, are being laid off. You've got to see a direct correlation to the Twitter purchase or acquiring Twitter. Brad, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
You've got to draw that correlation, do you not?
To a degree, you do. I mean, if he's willing to spend $43 billion or whatever to buy Twitter, and he's having to lay employees off, I mean, you could think, well, maybe you could resource some of that $43 billion
back
to do that. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, maybe he got overbearing on his hiring at some point and realized that okay, so I did this, but it turned out not to happen. And I mean, on top of that, you have to think Tesla's a company that relies on processors and chips and batteries and things of that nature. And right now, those are very hard to come by. I mean,
very true.
Getting the minerals for the circuit boards and the microchips is not easy right now. I mean, China's got a stranglehold on that.
Very true.
And so, and the cost of services has gone up too. I mean, you look at just for shits and giggles. I mean, I just put a brand new motor in my truck, and that was to the tune of $7,665. I mean, $5,000 for the motor, and then $2,600 for the labor.
Right.
Motors weren't that expensive back in the day. They are now, but so the cost, and then what? $4.49 a gallon for gas. I mean, I know it's an electric vehicle, but let's be honest, Teslas aren't being driven by your everyday average American citizen. They're being driven by some, of the bigger financial people. Now, I mean, I'm not saying the Warren Buffetts of the world, but I'm saying, those
athletes, people that are making more than average. Yeah,
six figures, mid six figure employees and people are buying those. You can't just go to the lot and go, I'll take that $42,000 pickup truck,
right,
and it be a Tesla, or because you're going to spend $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 on that car. And I mean, maybe the market's not there anymore for it right now. I don't know. But I do know that, I do agree with some of that commentary that he made. Just like, for example, I don't know if you guys have gone back or if you're still working from home. But the pandemic did show a lot of people that you don't need the brick and mortar businesses anymore when it comes to things like that. You can cut your costs exponentially down. You still don't pay your employees shit, but you save some money as a business owner by not having to pay rent, utilities, upkeep on the building, things of that nature. Walmart's learned that they don't have to be open 24 hours a day, which pisses me off, but
absolutely. And I mean, there are a lot of companies out there that have made the decision to switch to completely work from home, because you're right, the costs just plummet. Let's be honest, in this day and age, if you can work from home, I think it's absolutely asinine that any of these, companies do not work from home. Any tech company that doesn't work from home is kind of mind-blowing to me, because you're keeping...
Just to clarify on his comments, I never used a dentist appointment. I had like 9 grandmothers that passed away when I wanted to go interview somewhere else. Weird as shit.
Damn. Damn it.
I think the same one died like 6 times. Not sure.
You're terrible. But also, I don't know if you saw the Musk news today, but he's actually now threatening to pull out of the $43 billion deal because he's saying that Twitter is not providing him with information on spam bots. What do you think about that? That's
I think he's absolutely right. I think that Twitter has inflated their number of users. And I think that they do a lot of spam bots and things of that nature. And if they're not proposed enough or going to give him the accurate information as to what he's purchasing, I don't blame him. I mean,
for $43
I lost interest in Twitter a long time ago because when they started censoring and then the ultimate banishment of Trump and then other people that didn't fit their narrative or their agenda or what they wanted to talk about, I lost it. And then to be, I think when you start regulating who can be on your computer, who can be on your platform and who can't, then you lose the entity that you are and you become what should be a regulated governmental company at that point, because now you're dictating who can be on there and who can't. If you have it wide open and you let people, now obviously you don't want hate speech to a degree on there, like terroristic speech. But I mean, what condones or what classifies hate speech? If I don't agree with what you say, like if Manny says something and I don't agree with it, and I tell him that's the most asinine shit he's ever said in his entire life, is that hate speech? No, that's an opinion.
And what's crazy is between Facebook and Twitter, you can't have an opinion anymore. Now,
you can have an opinion. Jesus Christ, you ought to see this Razorback Nation page I'm on. Holy shit!
Right? It's hilarious to me because you freaking sit there and look at these things, and yes, I'm all for educate yourself. Before you put your opinion out there, educate yourself. Try to, not make yourself look like a dumbass. But to censor somebody for having an opinion when they thought the facts were such, then I think that's absolutely asinine and ridiculous. I mean, hell, worst case scenario, put the little fucking fact check shit out there. But don't fucking ban somebody from Twitter or fucking Facebook. And this isn't about the Trump thing because, I mean, he had plenty of information at his fingertips. But the normal average everyday citizen isn't out there to fucking spread misinformation and control the narrative and all of that shit. That's just fucking stupid, honestly. That's stupid in my opinion. And you're giving people way too much fucking ego to think that their opinion really matters that damn much if you ban them on fucking Facebook or Twitter for a day because they put an opinion out there.
Well, you look at the fact that, I mean, go back and just look. I mean, you could tell the way of the world and how it's going and the mushing of the mind that has now come out since the pandemic. The pandemic exposed a lot of shit. I mean, you got Jake and Logan Paul who are now boxing.
Multi-billionaires, boxing.
Yeah, they're boxing, Tyrone Woodley and guys like that. They're making a killing. Then you got TikTok that's now on the rise, and if you get a certain amount of viewership, you can, it's just crazy. And then, then you got Tiger King, which dominated the 2020. And then this year was the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial that took over. I mean, it's just, we've lost all sense of, as a society, we've lost pretty much all sense of reality anymore. And that's the thing is I know a couple of guys that we both know. One of them had aspirations of, making it big on YouTube. Well, okay, that's fine. You make it big on YouTube, more power to you. If you've got the content and people want to tune into it, but that's not forever. You're not going to do that forever unless you're that 9-year-old kid who's fucking with toys. And
it's not even that it's not forever. You can make a decent living doing YouTube. But here's the thing. To make a decent living, it's a lot like making it in the, entertainment industry. Good Lord. Me and Brad love doing the American Idiots every Monday. But Brad, what's it going to take for you to quit your day job? Because it's going to take a hell of a lot of money for me to start making on this podcast for me to ever even consider quitting my day job.
I mean, if you give me a 12-pack of beer and $20 a week, I'm good. And I'm just kidding. I don't even drink. But anyway, I mean, no, there's just no way. I mean, And the
People are
thing is
quitting their
there's like,
jobs. People are quitting their jobs in droves, thinking they're going to get famous playing video games on Twitch and all of this stuff. People are
well, here's
quitting their
another one.
fucking
There's
jobs doing all this shit.
well, and there's like on TikTok, there's that two-turn Tony who walks around in
What's up, Eric?
flip-flops and underwear and carries a duck around with him, and he's got the ski mask girl with him. And yeah, he's creative, and he's come up with a way that people have flocked to him, and he's making a ton of money. But I mean, you see the influx of OnlyFans during the pandemic,
Right?
and it's, but like I've always said, it's like more power to you. I do not discourage anyone to follow a dream they may have, or chase something, or try to do something. And there's a guy that me and you both know who at least does it the right way.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
he entered, did the music scene for a while, and that wasn't going where he wanted it to go. So he branched out and he did something else, and he's been mildly successful there to a degree.
But here's the difference. The guy's going about it the right way. The guy doesn't quit his day job just to focus on that or anything like that. Like, if you could say one thing that we have lost during COVID, it's common fucking sense. Like we were forced to lose it. I mean, we were forced to lose common sense. Common sense would dictate to you that you had, and I'm not going on a COVID tangent, but let's be honest. You had a disease that was only fatal in like not even a full percentage of the American or the world population, and people were acting like the doomsday drug was going around. Oh, now that we beat COVID, though, it's monkeypox.
I know it's going to be something, but here's the thing. Hell yeah. The thing about the reason that the thing that really educated me on the way of the world anymore was during the COVID period, was when you would deny the fact that they politicized a virus. I mean, I've had people who are very influential in doctors' places around the United States, family members that have served on boards for COVID research and COVID, and they've told me that yes, this was a real disease. It was really a nasty disease if you had pre-existing health conditions and such to that nature. But they said that the way that things were going about it was politicized, and they found a way to do it. To me, honestly, I think they did. They found a way to attack the president as far as back when he had his economy going good and everything like that, and then they found a way to hand out free money. So
yeah, absolutely, very true. One thing, and awesome. Apparently, hogs are up 4-zip, Brad. I don't know if you're following that as well, but the hogs are up 4-zip right now. Hopefully, the hogs can stay alive. So, Brad, here's another thing that we're looking at, though. You mentioned common sense, and you mentioned how they politicized this the virus and what have you, and since the beginning of this COVID time. Here's one that just absolutely baffled me. When Fauci came out about a month ago and was like, you know what? Yeah, we're to a spot where we're probably settling in to our new normal. We can go back to doing normal things. Who was the first people that fucking attacked them? The left, saying, oh, Fauci doesn't know what he's talking about. All of a sudden, it went from this guy, we need to listen to him all the fucking time, and this guy knows what he's talking about, to, let's urge some caution. Like, bro, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth, and that's the hypocrisy of politics. I understand that, but it's absolutely ridiculous and frustrating to people like Brad and myself. I'm sure, Brad, I'm talking for you here, but for Brad and myself, because you hear these politicians get up there and literally, based upon the situation, their answer to any question would change based upon the situation that they're presented. It's ridiculous.
Well, no, I mean, Dr. Fauci's a fuckface. No, I mean, seriously. I mean, the guy's a fraud. He's a fake, and fuck, if you did enough digging, you'd probably find some shit you probably would blow your mind. But anyway, I mean, you speak on that, the left, the right, all of them. Let's group them all together. Well, and the reason I don't say that, I say the left mainly because they were the ones preaching mask mandates. Wear your mask, wear your fucking mask. But then you see that the governor of California, he's at a private party with no mask at a bar. And then you see the Skeletor herself, Nancy Pelosi, who said they're going to shut down the salons. And yet she opens one up, makes one open up for a fucking haircut. And then she's out here like, and you know, Sean, back in the day, we talked about this at one time. And like Sean said, bitch, you're peddling $12 pints of ice cream on the fucking Tonight Show or whatever it was. And we're all out here scraping pennies together to grab a hot dog.
Absolutely.
I mean, they all do it. They all do it. I mean, all the politicians could give two shits less. They're still going to draw their congressional salary. They're still going to plug their lobbyist money. It doesn't matter. And they get health care and shit.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's what it is. I mean, it's what it is, man. So.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about what's coming up in November, the midterms, and how we think, number one, the
red wave, huh?
Number two, Joe Biden will play come November. We have a story from the Wall Street Journal.
Across the United States, a political shift is rocking the two major political parties and promising to play a pivotal role in this year's midterm elections.
The shift is among Latino voters. We're going to show you a WSJ analysis of where this shift happened in 2020.
And zoom in on 3 key areas to watch as the midterms approach in 2022. Ready?
I think I'm ready.
So, Aaron, you're a WSJ editor focused on polling and political data. Tell us, big picture first, why are shifts in this demographic so significant?
This shift among Latino voters is one of the most important things that's happened recently in American politics, and everyone's watching to see if it's durable. Latino voters are one of the biggest and fastest growing parts of the electorate, and they swung a lot away from the Democratic Party and toward the Republican Party in 2020.
To better understand political shifts across America, WSJ created this map that brought together electoral, demographic, and economic data at the neighborhood level. By doing this, we found something striking.
In the last presidential election, 3,730 predominantly Latino census tracts shifted to the right, compared to just 352 that shifted left.
Census tracts are boundaries set by the U.S. Census Bureau that average about 4,000 residents per tract. So Aaron, what do these shifts tell you?
Well, they tell us that something is changing in the electorate. The shift was pervasive, but it wasn't uniform. It happened to different extents in different places, but it happened among all kinds of Latino voters.
Okay, so let's zoom into some of these key communities. First, we'll go to Texas, to these neighborhoods along the southern border. So what are we seeing here?
What we're seeing is a map of the vote, not county by county, but neighborhood by neighborhood. Technically, these are census tracts. And in 2016, these shades of blue indicate that the vote was pretty firmly Democratic in most neighborhoods. That's that rich dark blue that you see.
All right, so then in 2020, you can see those shades of blue got lighter.
That's right. That signals that the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, still won those neighborhoods, but he got a smaller share of the vote than Democrats got in 2016.
All right, so if you take a look at the shift, here's what that looks like. Almost all of these neighborhoods shifted right, correct?
That's right. This whole region is now dark red on the map, showing that there was a big shift, about 20 points or more in many places, toward Donald Trump.
What do we know about the shift? What motivated it?
We're still studying it. A lot of people are studying it, but it looks like the most important thing that happened is that the issue mix changed. In 2016, there was a lot of talk about immigration, but in 2020, it was all about the economy and COVID. And when COVID struck, it hit the Rio Grande Valley very hard, but voters hold the kind of jobs that you can't do from home. And so when businesses were shut down, they lost work, and they favored the Republican point of view on keeping businesses open during COVID, rather than the Democratic impulse to shut things down in order to protect public health.
This shift is really significant, but this part of Texas is not as populated as some of those huge cities, Austin, Dallas, Houston. Why is this area so politically significant?
If you want a signal of how important this area is, consider that both the candidates running for governor, the current governor, Greg Abbott, in his re-election campaign, and his Democratic challenger, Beto O'Rourke, both started their campaigns either along the Rio Grande Valley or elsewhere along the border with Mexico. And Republicans are very excited about the prospect of flipping 3 U.S. House seats in the Rio Grande Valley that are now held by Democrats.
So these are the kind of voters that could be responsible for the balance of power in the House.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's go to another state. Where do you want to zoom in?
Shelby, let's go to Pennsylvania and look at the city of Reading. These census tracts lie about 50 miles northwest of Philadelphia. In the 2016 presidential election, they were dark blue, indicating that between 80% and 90% of the vote there was Democratic.
But in 2020, again, we see those shades of blue get a little lighter. And if you look at the tracks in terms of the shift, they all go red. And you traveled to Reading recently.
It's very different than the Rio Grande Valley. That's rural. Reading, of course, is urban, and a lot of people moved there from Philadelphia and New York.
And what issues are resonating with these voters in Reading?
Well, the economy was still number one, and the economy under Trump gave the Republican Party a lot of credibility with these voters. Another thing I found was that immigration is important as an issue here, but I found that voters were disillusioned with both political parties. They might want tough border security, but for those who are already here in the country, they want to see a pathway to citizenship.
Are there any Democratic policies that are turning these voters off?
That's a big debate among Democratic strategists, and some Democratic strategists are very worried that the party has become too identified with liberal policy positions on crime and policing and on racial preferences and affirmative action. And I did hear from a number of voters that they thought that the Democratic Party was just not focusing on the issues that were important to them.
So what is at stake in Pennsylvania in 2022?
Well, Pennsylvania has both an important race for the Senate and a governor's race. You have a Republican legislature in Pennsylvania that wants to change the rules around voting. Having a Democratic governor would make sure that the Democrats have a say in the rules around voting. And who leads the state can matter in the campaigning for the next presidential election.
All right, now let's go somewhere else where there's a different mix of voters from the ones in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Shelby, let's go to South Florida, and it really is a different kind of place. Look at all these census tracts where more than 70% of the residents are Latino. We're particularly interested in the densely populated neighborhoods around Miami.
Wow, so there are a lot of these little census tracts. So at first glance, it's pretty hard to tell how much things changed between 2016 and 2020.
But here's where things get super clarifying. Look at the shift between 2016 and 2020. All of these red census tracts show that voters there shifted to the right.
So in a state where population centers are pivotal, this is a big shift.
Yeah, it is a big shift, and it's one reason, an important reason, that Donald Trump won the state of Florida in 2020. And it's also a reason, the shift in the Latino vote, that Republicans picked up 2 House seats in South Florida that had been held by Democrats.
When you think about Miami, you often think about Cuban Americans, but the Latino vote there is quite diverse, right?
It is, but the large presence in South Florida of Latino voters who come from countries that are dictatorships, Cuba and Venezuela, noticeably meant that one issue had particular salience in South Florida, and that is the Republican criticism that Democrats are going to turn the United States into a socialist country.
So what's at stake in the midterms?
Well, Florida has both a governor's race and a Senate race this year. And then when you come to House districts like the 2 in South Florida that flip to the Republican Party, this year it's unlikely that Democrats can win those seats back. The analysts now rate them as solidly Republican, in part because of the shift in the Latino vote.
So zooming back out, these maps we're looking at show a shift between presidential elections. 2022 is not a presidential election. Do analysts think that will matter in terms of the Latino vote?
Well, what we have now is polling, and we have focus groups, and they suggest that yes, what we're seeing in 2020, the shift toward the Republican Party, is continuing.
Can we see how issues are shaping the midterms already?
You can see how the 2 parties are trying to shape the issue landscape.
We're going to be the most prosperous state in the nation. We're going to open up our energy sector like you've never seen it before.
We're going to work at the local, state, and federal level to continue to support a woman's right to choose.
We are making sure that we are going after the criminal element that's coming across the border.
The time for us to stop the next mass shooting in this country is right now, right here, today.
People might have opinions about abortion. They might have opinions about the economy. They might have opinions about immigration. But that doesn't mean that that issue is the one that's going to make them come out and vote and is going to determine their choice of candidates. Which issues are most salient is still an open question.
Why does this kind of shift matter for the political parties?
If this shift is durable, it marks a big change for the two political parties. If Latino voters are shifting away from the Democratic Party and becoming more of a swing group, that means that one of the pillars of the Democratic coalition is getting shaky. Republicans, on the other hand, they've become, in large part, the party of America's white working class. But they want to be a party of a working class across all racial groups. This movement among Latino voters, if it continues, suggests that this is in fact happening, and the Republican Party can become the party of America's future by building across different races a party of America's working class.
Brad, last topic for the evening before we get to our American Idiot. Very, very interesting stuff. A lot of people attacked Trump based upon his ideas at the southern border and immigration. A lot of people attack him, but it seems like if you look at the data just presented to us by the Wall Street Journal, Latinos are migrating towards the Republican Party and therefore apparently didn't have as big an issue as, was publicized with Trump's immigration policies. Does that shock you, first of all?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't shock me at all. And it's the same thing that Donald Trump was saying. It's the same thing that if you have an open mind and you're not so singularly focused on the issue at hand, you notice that the media is basically driving. Go back to 2020 when Biden was running for president. I think that's some of the reason that a lot of people have a problem buying the fact that he won the election fair and square. I honestly believe that we saw an anti-Trump vote show up, plus the availability of accessible to the voters that didn't have access to the polls. The paper ballots. I do think there was some inconsistencies in some of the voting and polling places. Like I think it was Detroit or where they actually stopped the count until the next morning and then magically found a ton of votes for whatever. I'm not saying that on a large scale. I think it happens all the time, but no, it doesn't shock me. The fact of the matter is that people tend to believe what the news is selling them. And you look at Joe Biden when he ran in 2020, like I was saying before, is he didn't even have to leave the house, like hardly at all. The media campaigned for him. And when Clinton was in office, they sold the border wall and the kids in cages and all of this other shit that is just a farce. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's happening under Biden's watch. And I think that's what people are understanding now is that not everything that you see on the news, not everything you see here on this show, anywhere you're going to get an opinion. And that's the problem. The news is now what dominates CNN is shit asses like Anderson Cooper and Don Lemon. And then you have over on Fox, you got Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity that they're not fucking news reporters. They're opinion piece people.
Right.
It's their opinion. It's not fucking news. The news is dead. There's no news anymore. There's not. It's all skewed and okay. So yeah, okay. Point an example, and it's just an example. They report on 9/11 as it happened. Not saying they did, but today's society, you would have had the Kentucky Derby winner, Rachel Maddow, horse face bitch.
And that's reporting you won't get on mainstream media.
I hate her. But anyway, she would be reporting that the fucking aisleways weren't wide enough for the fucking terrorists to take over the cabin. They had to go in single file. That's the type of shit that you get with that.
Honestly.
I'll be right back. Hang on. I got a point to make, but I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm not here to make a joke about this, but legitimately, I mean, seeing how he brought up 9/11, we would have legitimately been like, okay, but what was the mental health of the terrorists? Were we nice to them? Were they upset with us? Like, we would have been there. Like, legitimately, it wouldn't have been, hey, motherfucker, you killed 3,000 Americans. It would have been, well, they tried, and we've been bothering them for. My favorite that I do hear from one of our former co-hosts is, well, we were poking the bear for years and years upon years. We got what we deserved. No, we didn't get what we deserved in 9/11. We didn't get anything of what we deserved in 9/11. Did we do some fucked up shit in our country's history? Absolutely, but that doesn't mean 3,000 people needed to die. That's absolutely unacceptable, the way people act today towards things like 9/11. You're right. Anything today is an opinion piece that you see on Fox News or CNN or any of that. So hopefully we'll see a move away from that. One of the big things that we are seeing, though, like it's shocking to me how many Latinos are starting to move towards the Republican side of thinking. And honestly, that's going to put the Democrats on the ropes, in my opinion.
It will. And I'm back. It will. But here's the thing. The reason that you're seeing a shift, like you said, was because we saw the policies that the left and the Democrats wanted to enact.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, and it, like I said, I think it was on this show. Hell, I may have been just talking. We're talking about a freaking crime. The Georgia runoffs were a crime. And here's why. Because you bribed your voters. You told them, if you elect Warnock and whoever, Ossoff or whatever his name is, then you'll get your check.
Yeah.
That's to me, I don't understand that. This makes no sense. But that's the way they want to do things. And here's what they want to do. And I don't give a shit. I mean, I've been accused of being a racist before. Whatever. I'm not. But the thing about it is what they want to do is the Democrats basically want to be your daddy. They want to be your parents. They don't want you to have to struggle or do nothing. They just want to go, oh, we'll give you money. They don't give a shit about you. So here's what they're going to do, right? So they go to the black community and they go, that's racist. That cop was racist. And people are so willing to accept anything as being factual that they go, you know what, it is true. Nonetheless, like I get that there's shit cops. And there's some situations where now we're baiting everybody. Goddamn, every time you get pulled over, you're on a cell phone video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why was that cop there in the first place? If and like I said, like the George Floyd situation. I mean, I've questioned that from day one. Why throw him in a car and let him get out the other side? That's fucking stupid. Why are you on his back for 8.5 minutes? The gentleman in New York where an illegal chokehold was performed. God damn, that's reported. That's reported by the police. An illegal chokehold. God damn. Why is he getting off on this shit?
Mm-hmm.
That's my point but the Democrats, they want to, like during the pandemic, first thing they want to do, okay, we're going to close your businesses. Can't have this business running. Can't have it. But what we're going to do is we're going to go, okay, if you make $455 a week, I'm just using somebody that I know,
mm-hmm.
and I know what he made an hour. After taxes, he was pulling about $455 a week. No problem, right? So then the business shuts down, okay? Then they offer the pandemic unemployment. Now explain to me why, if you've got all these businesses shut down, gas is at like 50 fucking cents a gallon, what is the need to give this guy a standard $300 unemployment, but then a $695 supplement on top of that? What's the need to pay this guy $1,000 a week if nothing's available to be spent and open? Why are you giving this much money away?
To be fair, to be fair, even though Joe Biden doesn't think the average everyday American knows what we're going through right now. I can't think of the word, and it's actually killing my point. But what we're going through right now with this economy, he doesn't think everybody knows from it. I can guarantee you can draw that back not only directly to those 3 stimulus checks that, let's be honest, a majority of Americans did not need. A majority of Americans did not need. That's why we're having this inflation. There we go. Inflation problem we're having right now. You can.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't working where I'm working now, and because of my ideology, I don't put it out there where I'm at.
Right.
Because I don't want anything to suffer because of an opinion that I have and a disagreement somebody else may have with it. But I will say this: I was working at the apartment complexes doing maintenance, and other than a 10-day sabbatical, which was amazing, you got paid for it. That was the only time that we took off. My life never changed. I got a $1,200 stimulus check, but I didn't need it. But I'm not going to turn it down. I'm not going to lie to you. But I knew the consequences that came with it. I mean, there's, the consequences that came with it is what we're facing now. We 3, 4, but that's the thing. I don't even think the stimulus package was the problem. It was the pork fat and shit in it that was the problem. I mean, don't get me wrong, but why in the hell do we need to send $10 billion to Ethiopia for fucking transgender studies? What point is that?
Your guess is as good as mine on that.
I don't give a shit who gets mad at me for saying that. I'm just saying, at the point in time, if you're doing a United States stimulus package to prop up your own fucking people, then why are we funding shit overseas? It doesn't make any sense. And that's what we're dealing with now. And then, the Ukrainian war right now that Russia involved themselves in and got themselves in or started, whatever, that's fucking with the oil reserves. And him shutting the pipeline down had nothing to do with our gas prices today because that pipeline didn't affect us. It affected our jobs, but it didn't really affect our oil supply. But he set the tone as being an anti-renewable resource or whatever they call it, president. He's a green president. He and AOC and Ilhan Omar and all those other cunts up in the fucking White House. Excuse my language.
I mean, you're not wrong, but all of this, I believe, is.
Hey, I will be right back. I will be right back.
All of this is going to combine for come November. It's going to be a bloodbath, honestly. And again, it's not going to end in November. For everybody that has followed politics, for everybody that is watching this show, listening to this show, ever heard the sound of my voice, I will tell you right now, this will not end this November. It's going to go all the way to 2024, and here's why I say that. There was a lot of people who had the free time to engage themselves in the political process of 2020. People that normally don't go out of their way, but hey, they had nothing better to do than to engage in that political process in 2020. Never have we had 84 million people vote for one candidate in the United States presidential election. And here's the problem Democrats face. Democrats face the problem now that we're outside of COVID and we don't have that captive attention for a majority of the Americans, and a majority of that 84 million that they had, they face that problem of having to try to keep them engaged. And let's be honest, they're going to lose at least half. They're going to lose at least half to 3/4 of that number. That's my opinion, but that's where I see it. There is no way possible when in previous presidential elections, the normal winner got somewhere in the neighborhood of 56 million. And we went up.
Well, and I'll tell you this, speaking to your point, I think the reason that people had a hard time trying to understand and comprehend what happened in 2020 was because Barack Obama, who, incited a massive influx of new voters. I call it the Tiger Woods effect because of what Tiger Woods brought to the game of golf.
Right.
You know, he opened it up to a much younger audience and a major new demographic that golf wasn't used to. You know,
Right.
golf used to be the sport of rich old white people, and you know, that's what it used to be. And now it's evolved into, like, it's got the same following that basketball does now, or football. I mean, it's so mainstream sport now that anybody and everybody's playing it. They're using this. They've gone away from the penny loafer style golf shoes to the athletic Nike, Under Armour, Callaway. You know, so. But that Barack Obama inspired a demographic that had never been politically involved to get out and vote. And you're telling me that Joe Biden outdid him? Bullshit. Even hate for Trump wasn't that massive of a number of votes.
Exactly.
So their advantage has gone away. Now we'll see what they come up with in 2024.
And he intends, as of today, you know, he's saying he's going to run again. Here's the thing. Put him in there against somebody that does have, and again, here's the thing. The only way I see Joe winning is if Trump isn't across from him. There is still enough anti-Trump sentiment in this country that I think Joe could ride to a second term if it was against Trump again. However, put somebody that has Trump's backing up there, say the dude out of Florida, the governor.
DeSantis.
What?
Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis. Say a Ron DeSantis, a Greg Abbott. Somebody like that, put them on that presidential ticket. Oh, that's going to be interesting. I mean, hell, I laughed about it, but hell, if Asa somehow got behind Trump, Asa all of a sudden is apparently thinking about presidential aspirations.
Well, Jesus Christ.
Let's be honest, being the governor in the state of Arkansas is collecting a paycheck.
Oh, Jesus,
The past
no.
two haven't been worth the damn.
Asa Hutchinson's a shithead ass clown anyway.
The past two haven't been worth much anyway. But
I mean, because you go back, and I disagree with you, and I don't think that Trump would have a problem winning the White House again, honestly. I really don't, because we're talking in 2 years, the landscape of politics in America is going to change. It's going to change, and then things are going to get a lot better for a lot of people. They may not see it that way, because it's not going to be based on democratic principle. But if we have a red wave, hopefully, and things shift in Congress and the House and the Senate, I mean, you're looking at a completely different political landscape in 2 more years. And
Absolutely.
I think, like I was, I've been accused of being a homophobe and a racist because I supported Donald Trump. It had nothing to do with, I always wanted him to shut the hell up. I thought he said too much. But I don't think Trump was as negative and as bad as everybody or the media put him out there to be. I really don't.
Well, it's kind of funny.
And all of a sudden Snoop Dogg hates him.
It's kind of funny that now Americans are finally starting to give him his flowers, like you heard in the Wall Street Journal story there, where they said, his economy was damn good, and it even strengthened the Republican Party. I always maintained that if Trump just handled the economy and outsourced everything else, he'd be fine. I think his ego took a little bit.
I tell you,
but
the reason I disagree with you on that is I think Trump handled every aspect of his presidency the way a president should have from a policy standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Donald Trump is he's not presidential in his demeanor, and he's not presidential in his rhetoric. And that was the thing, is instead of the na 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 na, just do your job. And what he should have done, literally, is he should have tramped out Fauci and whoever else and had them speak about and put the Speaker of the House out on the floor to let them speak of the COVID numbers and him handle business and stay out of the limelight and quit, pimping whatever shit he was doing.
Chloroquine or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, instead of doing all that, just handle your business, and go about your deal. But he always had to have the he wasn't humble.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to have as a president. You have to, because he enacted a lot of foreign policy that kept a lot of the psychos on, like the Putins of the world and the Rocket Mans of the world. I can't remember his fucking name. Kim Jong shithead or whatever.
Yeah.
He kept them in check with his policies and stuff. They were, because he showed that we had force, and that's the thing that this president hasn't done. But anyway, I think a lot of initially when Trump came around, the media said it. He's against gay people. He's against Mexicans. He's against Latinos. He's against this. He's against that. But I mean, he only enacted one piece of legislature that attacked the LGBT community. That was it. Now, the one you had to worry about was Mike Pence. He was more of the traditional Christian conservative that would have deplored a major blow to, the alt community, I guess, or whatever, the gay community, whatever. But I just think Trump got a bad rep.
I think a lot of people. You mentioned a name right there, which I think is going to be hilarious if he decides to go through with it. Mike Pence. It's going to be hilarious to.
I think Mike Pence will.
He's going to be an idiot to try to come back.
Well, I think Mike Pence will have some early success, but I think you still have a large contingency of Trump supporters. And here's what I define a Trump supporter as. I think if you support Trump, you're wanting that candidate that doesn't really he lines himself Republican, even though he said in the 90s he was a Democrat, but he would run as a Republican and he'd win. But I think he's pretty much the brash guy that he's like everybody else at their dinner table at night that says, F this guy and F that's dumb. I don't think he's out there going, I wouldn't let that N-word in here, or I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's ridiculous. So stupid. He got awards and civil service awards from Jesse Jackson, but now all of a sudden, because he ran for president, he's a piece of shit. People need to wake up.
Yeah, it is what it is. Brother, let's go ahead and hit our American Idiot of the Week. My American Idiot of the Week isn't for this last week, but for whenever the Uvalde, Texas situation happened. That night, Greg Abbott had a appearance at an NRA event, which, I mean, let's be honest here, was scheduled way in advance. And, decides to berate the governor of Texas and just throw a complete hissy fit in public because he chose to be at an NRA event after a school shooting. I understand the optics are bad. If Greg Abbott was sitting in the governor's mansion and said, you know what, there's a school shooting, let me go to the NRA and go hang out with them, yeah, that would be pretty shitty. But I'm pretty sure that he was either there or there was an inability to change plans by the time that happened, and that's why he made that appearance. Again, common sense isn't that common anymore, and that is why Beto O'Rourke will be my American Idiot of the Week.
Well, my American Idiot or Idiots of the Week is this couple.
Oh, Lord.
That gave same-day delivery a fucking new meaning as they were in the act of sexual favors and fucking ran into the back of a FedEx truck. Fuck great.
Oh, shit.
Can't make this shit up.
That's hilarious. Like, he was driving and, oh, shit.
I don't know if we were doing like roadhead or what we were doing, but
that's funny.
But we're in the act of sexual conduct and freaking rear-ended and hit a FedEx truck. You should Google it. It's hilarious. I don't know the situation. I saw the headline and I was like, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, right.
And then I thought about you because of FedEx.
Right, exactly. But
no, man, I appreciate the time tonight on the show, and I know I'm not here all the time, and that's probably a good thing for ratings. But
hey, we're lucky to have you when we get you, brother, and I'm certainly excited. Hopefully, you'll be back next week, and we'll start rocking and rolling.
Well, I tell you this too, and I know one subject we didn't cover, but it's interesting. I'm a huge Ben Shapiro fan, and he was talking about the Amber Heard trial, and maybe that's a topic that you should discuss next week. But I don't know, though, man. You like to piss off the feminist movement, I heard. But I heard you were big in the abortion debate. You kind of, but anyway.
I may or may not have pissed some people off that day.
But I mean, the subject that I found was that they're now saying that the defamation suit, and by Johnny Depp winning the defamation suit, that it was a setback for women and the movement of women to report these problems, because now they know they're not going to win. And so what's the point of coming out and saying anything about it when they're always being held back? And I disagree with that, but I know we don't have time for it. But it is a situation where that's the new thing now. That Amber Heard was completely right, and everything should have been said. And the fact that she lost her defamation suit, even though she's a pathological fucking bad acting liar, it was a setback for women. So food for thought if you want to look that up for next week.
Absolutely. We'll get it on the agenda. But for Mr. Brad, I am Money Mike. We will see you guys next week on the American Idiot Show. Good night, everybody.
That I welcome this kind